Well, thank you, Art. This time through the Competent Communicator Manual, most of you know I've been focusing on Toastmasters and the Toastmasters program, a little bit about Toastmasters, so it's not unexpected that I would conclude a number 10 speech with something about Toastmasters. Now, when I first joined Toastmasters, I wanted to know what was in it for me. I had come out of college, out of graduate school, I had been a debater, and I wanted to continue public speaking in some way, so that was a reason, communication. In those days, we didn't really have programs at work about leadership and how to become a leader, and it looked like Toastmasters might give me that opportunity. So leadership, communication and leadership that we always talk about. But there was a third thing. I had recently moved from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, starting a brand new job where I knew absolutely nobody. I needed friends. And I thought, well, maybe if I join Toastmasters, I'll make some friends. And I did. So the third facet, I think, of Toastmasters is socialization. And you don't hear that, you don't see that in the manuals, but I'm telling you, it's there. Today what I'm going to do is share with you 3 more stories, if you will, about an example of each of these and why I remember it and why it is important to me and what's in it for you. I'm going to start with communication. In this club, I could cite any number of people that have made it up through the ranks and really improved their communication skills. But one individual stands out in my mind as achieving basically the impossible. This gentleman, there's only one person in this room that will even remember him. This gentleman was a foreign student. He was from Botswana. Now, if you look on the map over here, Botswana is this pink country right in the middle of nowhere. Now, he was a member of the Botswana Self-Defense Force because obviously it doesn't need a navy. So his name was Meomedi Ramanathudi or something along that line. I keep trying to pronounce it even after all of these years. But because nobody could pronounce his name, he was calling himself Rams, R-A-M-Z. So he was known as Rams. Now Rams came as a guest to this club and sat over there about where Dave Cho is, listened very intently through the meeting. At the end of the meeting, they stumbled through a brief remark and couldn't understand a word he said. And he left, and he didn't come back. And we called him, he didn't come back. 3 months later, came back as a guest again, sat same seat, same story, said very little at the end, and he left. And he said, oh, now he's going to join, we'll get him to join. Same problem. 3 months later, this went on for a whole year. Finally, he decided he was going to join. He said, I need help with my English. And when you listen to this man, we've had many, many international students in this club over the years. And this gentleman was probably the hardest person to understand we ever met. You really had to use those Toastmasters listening skills to know what he was saying. But you know what? He got up and he gave his icebreaker. He talked about growing up in Botswana. He talked about things that happened in his country, about arranged marriages, and we learned a lot from Rams. And finally, when he got to his number 10 speech, he did. He got to his number 10 speech. He gave that number 10 speech, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember the message. And the message was, if I can do it, you can do it. It was amazing to this day. That was 10 years ago, probably pretty close to 10 years ago. And I remember. He went back to Botswana, had an arranged marriage. I think he joined Toastmasters over there, actually, and then over the years we lost track of him. But a great member with a great example of the communications you learn in Toastmasters. The second story I want to tell you is about a leader. This particular leader made it to international president about 3 years ago. And there was really nothing unusual about his rise to international president. He started out as a regular member, went through the chairs, pretty nondescript, and made it to the top and became international president. Pretty quiet guy. His name was Gary Schmidt. Now, why do I bring up Gary Schmidt if he didn't really do something really strange and outstanding? It was because of the leadership that he demonstrated that Arnie sometimes refers to as servant leadership. Gary Schmidt addressed at the district conference about 3 years ago. He gave the keynote speech. And the first thing he did, he got up and he said, before I start my speech, this is going to be a number 9 speech, I need an evaluator. Can you evaluate me? And he picked on somebody that just joined Toastmasters. Here is a man, after 12 or 15 years in the organization, had risen all the way to international president, and he's asking a guy that had been in a club for 3 weeks to evaluate him. This is servant leadership. He was on our level. He wasn't above us. He served us, and he was part of what we did. And that was amazing, because a lot of leaders talk the talk. But that day, Gary Schmidt walked the walk. And to this day, I respect him as much as I respect any of the international presidents that I have seen and that I have known. So leadership, a very important aspect of Toastmasters. Now earlier I mentioned socialization. What does that mean? You don't see it in the manual anywhere. You don't see it on the Toastmasters website. Well, I'm here to tell you there's 4 or 5 people in this room that are very dear friends of mine, and we call ourselves the Graybeards. Somebody else called us that once, and it stuck. And as Arnie said, none of us have a beard, but if we did, it'd be great. And these are good friends of mine. And through Toastmasters, I've accumulated many friends over the years, over the decades. So many so that if you go to my Facebook page and see the number of friends on my Facebook page, at least half of those are Toastmasters or former Toastmasters from somewhere. I see Angie Anderson every day on Facebook from Okinawa, for example. Glenn Toll from Afghanistan or wherever he happens to be at the moment. And these are friends that I will have for a lifetime. But there's another aspect, and I'm going to tell you another story that happened here in this club in the late 70s. There was a gentleman by the name of Peter Gaposchkin. Now, Peter was a genius, brilliant man, but he had 0 social skills. He was outside the circle of social ability. You have a circle and you put people in it, and you go to the edge. This is about as far as you can get. The people inside the circle, which is all of us, never break through that edge, but he was on the other side. He was slovenly, he didn't use deodorant, he couldn't talk to anybody. You know, if he started a sentence, he started with whatever was on his mind rather than, hi, how are you? No social skills at all. Somebody suggested he join this club. And he said, oh my God. No. But he did, and within 2 or 3 weeks he started using deodorant. This was very helpful. And he progressed through, and soon he was doing the roles, but the one I remember the most is Wordmaster. He was, or not as Wordmaster, but as using the word of the day. There was no word of the day that you could put up here that would be hegemony enough to stump him. And when he got up, the first thing he did was a sentence of the word of the day. You call on him for table topics, and he would immediately put the word of the day in a sentence. And the point, it got to be that the wordmaster, the challenge was, let's see if we can stump him. And every week, it got harder and harder. I remember a word called platycephalus. It had something to do with a flat forehead. He used it in a sentence, first time he got it. Correctly. It was unbelievable. And so he got to the point where he could actually communicate with people, not like you and I do, but certainly in a way that he wasn't going to be totally rejected. He still had a problem with the way he dressed. But eventually he moved up to the Bay Area, and years later I noted that he had become an area governor, and he showed up at the same district meeting that I did, and he went to a formal affair, which was a district installation. In those days it was basically white tie, and he wore a dirty white t-shirt. And so he wasn't quite there yet. But eventually he got him in a coat and tie. He became the district public relations officer a couple of years later in the number 4 position in the district. And absolutely amazing what Toastmasters can do for one person that needs some socialization skills. So if Rams can do it with communication, and Gary Schmidt can do it with leadership, and Peter Gaposchkin can do it with socialization, then why can't you? Toastmasters is more than just a program. It's a journey through life. And that's what's in it for you, Mr. Toastmaster.